Hello and welcome to my channel. I will be going through all of the books that I read in June. So surprisingly, I read 11 books in June, which, considering I had quite a busy month with work, has really surprised me because I didn't think that I would get that many books read. I also have an iced coffee in my favourite glass, which has little chili peppers on it. So I also read quite a few books on my Kindle this month. So I read more books on my Kindle than I did physically, but only just. So I think I'm just going to go down the list, and this is the order that I read them in. So may as well get started. The first one is an ebook, and that is 3 to Get Deadly by Janet Evanovich, and that is the third book in the Stephanie Plum series. So the Stephanie Plum series is about a woman who is very recently divorced and loses her job and she needs to find a new job. Her cousin, I think it's her cousin or her uncle, one of those, owns this bounty hunting business, and she decides to work there, although she isn't very good at it and has never been a bounty hunter before, so she's always getting herself into all kinds of trouble, and it's just really funny. So they were released in the 90s, so they're a little bit tongue-in-cheek. There's some things in them that don't necessarily hold up to today, but they are a reread for me because I read them when I was a teenager. So my sister and I used to get them out of the library, and it's one of the first series I remember reading that's like an adult series when I was growing up. So it's just really nostalgic for me, and I found a large number of them because they're still going to this day. I think they're up to she's up to nearly 40 of them. So I found quite a few of them in a charity shop and picked them up. But number 3, I couldn't find anywhere, so I had to pick up a copy on my Kindle. So I've read that to continue the series because I'm trying to read through them, and then once I've read them, I donate them, and it's freeing up some shelf space for me. So I gave it 3 stars. Overall, it was enjoyable, but I think for me, it's the nostalgia factor more than anything. They are quite funny, and overall, I enjoyed reading it. I then read Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is also another ebook, so this was another one that I read on my Kindle. This is about a female astronaut, and it is really just about how it's the 80s that it's set, and not only is she an astronaut, but she's also a gay woman. So it's about how she is navigating through life during her time working with NASA, and also navigating being gay in a time where it is illegal to be gay, and even the company is saying that it's not acceptable. And it's just it was a really good book. It was really interesting. It's quite emotional. I know a lot of people cried at the end, and I was close, but I didn't cry. For some reason, it's really difficult for me to cry at book, but I cry at everything else, so I guess it cancels out. And I gave that 4 stars. I really enjoyed Taylor Jenkins Reid. I like her writing style. I've read a couple of her books now, and I will definitely be picking up some of the other ones that I haven't read yet. I think I've still got some more on my Kindle that I need to get round to. I then read a library book, but I had to take it back to the library, so I don't have a copy of that physically, and that is Thunderhead by Neal Shusterman, and this is the second book in the Arc of a Scythe series, and the series is about apprentice scythes. So there are 2 people, Citra and Rowan, and they are apprentice scythes under one person, and the world has evolved to the point where people no longer die naturally, and because of this, the only way that you can die and for them to manage overpopulation is to be gleaned by a scythe. So Citra and Rowan are training to do that, but unfortunately there becomes a stipulation that only one of them will actually become a scythe, and the first task of the person who becomes a scythe is that they will have to glean the other. So it goes from just a nice situation where two people are apprenticing together to essentially a fight to the death, theoretically, because whichever one doesn't make it will die. So yes, I gave that 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. I will be continuing on with that series. I just haven't requested the next one out of the library yet because I had been busy and I was travelling, so I didn't want to request it when I wasn't here to pick it up from the library, but now I'm back. I'm hoping that I will be able to pick that up soon. I then read a Kindle Unlimited book, and that was Leather and Lark by Brynne Weaver. This is the second book in the Ruinous Love trilogy. I had to think then. In the Ruinous Love trilogy. Now, this is Lachlan, who is the brother of the male main character in the first book, Butcher and Blackbird, and Lark, who is the female main character from the first book, her best friend. And Lark calls herself a multiple deleter, and her family have some issues going on. There are some people who they believe are murdering and causing trouble for her family, and for some reason they think that it is potentially Lachlan and the person that he works for. So her aunt says to her that she should marry him to protect him, because in doing so she's then protecting her best friend and her best friend's partner. So they end up in this sort of marriage for convenience, and in doing so they get closer to each other and end up forming a little bit of a relationship. I also rated this 4 stars. I did really enjoy it, but I preferred Butcher and Blackbird. I don't know whether it's because I was reading Leather and Lark when I was travelling for work, and I didn't get much of a chance to sit down and read it continuously. It was something that I read while travelling on the train, or a little bit in my hotel room, and a little bit here, a little bit there. So I think that could have hindered my enjoyment, but I still think I would have preferred Butcher and Blackbird anyway. So there is that. But it is a dark romance, so if it is something you're interested in reading, please check the triggers. There is an extensive list of triggers in the book, so you can absolutely check that out. I then finally got onto a physical book, and that was Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmus. So this is set in the 60s, and the main character, Elizabeth, is a scientist, and more specifically, she is a chemist, and she is working for a company, but unfortunately she ends up having to resign, and in doing so she stumbles into this TV studio and ends up working on a cooking show. And what she does is she mixes science and cooking to prove that they are connected, and just sort of gives a bit of inspiration to women, because of when it's set in the 60s, it was mostly just women are housewives and that is it. But she kind of gives people more. She's encouraging them to do more, and showing how cooking and cleaning and being a housewife is much more important, and it is, a lot more than people think it is. Again, this is another one that I partially read while I was traveling, so it was a little bit slower to get into when I first started it, but it really picked up, and I read this relatively quickly, and I gave this one 4 stars as well. I think it was really interesting. It's not something I necessarily would have picked up for myself, but a friend gave it to me after she had read it, and so I thought I'd give it a go, and I enjoyed it. I then read an ARC. This was an e-ARC that I got from NetGalley, and it was Most Ardently Yours by Freya Sampson. This is due to be released on the 7th of July. I'm unsure exactly when this video will be scheduled, so it may or may not be released by the time this video is out. But this was about a woman who really loves Pride and Prejudice, and she is in a used bookstore and she ends up kind of accidentally, sort of, not really, but ends up stealing a copy of Pride and Prejudice. And this brings Mr. Darcy into the real world, and then she's got to figure out how to get him back into the story without causing any trouble. But she also secretly kind of wants to keep him in the real world because he's Mr. Darcy and he is the perfect book boyfriend. Unfortunately, I gave this 2 stars. I thought that it was going to be a little bit tongue-in-cheek and a little bit funny, and, you know, not poking fun, because I didn't mean it like that, but just more aware of the fact that it is a bit of a jokey kind of concept with, oh, a book boyfriend coming to life. But I just found there were too many like mentions of other books constantly. It was like in the first few chapters just listing off other authors, other characters from different books, and that is just not my preferred type of book at all. And there were just a few niggly things in it that I just didn't personally get along with, and that's just me and my preference. I don't think it was necessarily a bad book, and I honestly think that other people may really enjoy it. You know, if you enjoy Pride and Prejudice and you enjoy the little bit of the silliness of it, I think you will really enjoy it. I then read The Stranger at Black Lake by Christina McDonald. This is a Jess Lambert novella, and it is one that I've had on my Kindle for quite some time, and I believe I got it in an Amazon First Read selection because that is where I tend to end up picking up novellas, and I don't think it would have been one I'd have picked up just naturally on its own. That's the only thing I could think, but I'm unsure at this point. Now, the idea of this book, the premise is that the main character Jess moves to this new town and she finds a woman walking around completely naked other than a pair of shoes, and she obviously goes to help the woman, and when she ends up at this woman's house, there's been a murder. There's been a murder, and it's quite brutal and quite gruesome, and then it's trying to figure out who has done it, because of course the initial signs point to the naked woman. I think that because it's a novella and it's a prequel, I believe that this would really enhance anyone who has read any of the Jess Lambert books. It would really enhance their experience, because I have a feeling it helps with context for other things in that, and it maybe just gives a little bit of a background to it. I don't believe that this stands alone as just a novella that you can read. Now, that is my mistake, because before I picked it up to read, I didn't realise it was a prequel, and it wasn't until I decided to read it and start it that I noticed that. But I'd already had a copy of it. It was less than 150 pages. I thought I may as well just give it a go. So I would recommend it to anybody who has read those books, because I'm sure it would be a much better read. But personally, I don't think it stands alone without any additional context that I didn't have. It didn't seem to have much point to it. I then read Lost and Lassoed by Lyla. So this is the 3rd book in the Rebel Blue Ranch series. So this is about Gus and Teddy. So Gus is one of the brothers, one of the Ryder brothers, and Teddy is Emmy from the first book in this series, her best friend, and they kind of hate each other, and they end up thrown together because Gus's daughter, he co-parents, and has a good relationship with her mom, but she is out of town. So Gus is having to do all of the parenting, plus also look after the ranch and all this other stuff, and he just needs a little bit of help. So his family end up convincing him to have Teddy help out. And because of his long hours and having to be up so early, she ends up moving into his house a few days a week to help look after his daughter. Now, then the close proximity and the two of them kind of actually getting on rather than always sniping at each other and making snide comments, they end up realizing that maybe they don't hate each other all that much after all. So I gave this one 4 stars. I did enjoy it. I didn't enjoy it as much as the other 2 that I read in this series. I think that it was a long time coming with Teddy and Gus. It's just, personally for me, the single dad trope is not my favourite, so that wasn't really appealing to me. And on top of that, I recently read one of the Dream Harbour books, like one of those from that series, which was a single dad, and the storyline wasn't it wasn't exactly the same, but that was also about a single dad who needed somebody to help look after his kid, who ends up moving into his house. And I just thought that that was really strange to me, that the 2 books were so similar. Now, I think Lost and Lassoed did it a lot better, personally, for me, but I don't read enough single dad romance to know whether that is something that happens regularly, or if it was just a really weird coincidence that happened twice in the 2 books that I've read with that trope. But yeah, I enjoyed it, but I think I enjoyed the others in this series just a little bit more. And there's one more in this series, and I will definitely be picking that up, and I'm looking forward to getting into it. I then read Day One by Abigail Dean. So this is a book that I got in a blind date with a book for my birthday last year. So it has almost been a year of me owning this, so I thought it was probably time to read it. So this is about a school shooting that happens, and there's a little bit of a media frenzy around it. So there's lots of different people in it. So there's a person who survives, so it's them navigating the fact that they've survived this shooting, what that means, all that. There's like the media and people who are getting a little bit hysterical about it and sort of judging the people who are grieving and commenting on those kind of things. And then there's somebody who did live in this town and then no longer does, but they knew the person who was the shooter, and so it's their perspective of that as well. I gave this 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really interesting. I say enjoyed it. It's about a school shooting. I'm not sure that enjoy is the word to use. I thought it was a really interesting concept. So this was in a blind date with a book that was thriller themed. Now, personally, I would not necessarily say this was a thriller. It does have dark subject, of course, with the shooting, but I believe that this is more about conspiracy theories. So I guess that would maybe potentially go under thriller, but I feel like it's more about conspiracy theories and the media frenzy, and how when a tragedy happens, how people react to that and what kind of things people do surrounding that whole situation. And I just thought it was really interesting to read that, and I would definitely be interested in reading more Abigail Dean. This is the first book of hers that I've read. As I said, it was a gift, and I think I'll probably lend this to my granddad because I always lend him books that I think he might enjoy. I then read another arc, and this was Summerween by Joss Wood, and I believe that this is being released on the 16th of July, due to be released on the 16th of July. So this was an e-arc that I had from NetGalley. Now, I was initially drawn in by the cover, and Summerween just sounded absolutely fabulous. So this is about a woman who is a professional choreographer, and she comes back to her hometown, which is affectionately nicknamed Halloween Town, but they call it H-Town. And there is also the male main character. He is a surgeon and he's suffering from PTSD. So he also comes to the town because he visited when he was younger during the summer. So he comes back for the summer to try and help and relax. And then while the female main character, while she is there, she ends up getting roped into helping with a dance class for this big fair that they have in the summer. And the main character Dane, he ends up taking this class and he is really bad at dancing. And even though both of them are saying that they don't want a relationship, they end up getting closer. Now, I gave this 1 star. I did not enjoy this. The perspectives kept changing partway through chapters and I was really confused about who was actually speaking because there was no indication of the chapter change. The perspective changed, so I didn't understand who was talking. It took me out of it quite a lot. There were so many characters and so many different names, it was quite confusing to remember all of the different characters and who they were and how they were connected to people. And personally, I didn't find that any of the characters had any chemistry whatsoever. They just seemed to have a physical attraction to each other, and we were constantly being told about how much chemistry they had and how much they had in common, and being told of all these things that they supposedly did together, but we were never shown it. There was also another potential love interest that was it seemed like brought in to create tension, but then it was never brought up again until right towards the end, so it just seemed a little bit pointless. It just personally wasn't for me, and I'm quite upset because I genuinely thought that I was going to really enjoy it and I just didn't. So unfortunately, that was not a good one for me. I have just realised I missed a book in my list. So I actually have 12 books to talk about, not 11 that I said at the beginning. So I've got a little notebook here that I'm going down the list, and it's there. There's a hint. It's the one that's still on the shelf that has not been brought off the shelf. So we'll still continue on. That was a little bit of a side bar there. I then read I Know a Place by Nat Cassidy, and this is a collection of short stories. They are sort of horror thriller stories. I have never read anything by Nat Cassidy before. This was my first foray into his books. Iced coffee break because my throat. What I did with this one, I won't go into it all individually in this, but I ranked all of the short stories in the collection, and then I got an average. So this was an ebook as well. Then I got an average rating, and that is what I gave it. So I rated this 3 stars. So I think honestly my favourite story in the collection was the first one, Rest Stop. That one creeped me out so much. I read it right before bed and I was like, I've made a terrible mistake here. It still makes me feel a bit when I think about it, so that was not good, but good at the same time. I did have quite a varied range of ratings. Some of them I enjoyed quite a lot and others didn't quite hit for me, but overall I gave it 3 stars, and I would definitely be interested in reading more from Nat Cassidy in the future. Then the final book is Sealed with a Loving Kiss by Ellie Dean. This is the 9th book in the Beachview boarding house series, and if you have watched a lot of my videos or a couple of my videos before, you will know that I read one of these every single month because I'm trying to get through them all. And this one continues on from the previous book and follows the main character Mary, who her parents tragically die in a bomb raid. And after this happens, she finds a chest that her father owned, and in there is a secret that has been revealed, which is that she was actually adopted. And in search for her real parents, or to understand exactly what happened in this scenario, she then ends up in Cliff Haven, and she ends up living with Peggy Riley, who owns Beachview boarding house her sister. So Peggy ends up meeting Mary, and she ends up sort of involved in this whole sort of search for Mary's real parents. And this one concludes the sort of look and mystery behind it all, so you find out everything in this book. Now, these I typically always give 3 stars because I do enjoy them. They are nothing spectacular. They usually have a little bit of drama in them from, you know, a character has some kind of thing that's happening, but overall they are mostly just about this huge cast of characters, this family living during World War II and how that affects their daily life. So those are the 12 books that I read this month, but that also means that I didn't read more ebooks than physical books. I read exactly the same number. I'm just checking that now. I don't know how I managed to mess this up every single time. Let me just try again. I just can't count apparently. So I read more ebooks than I read physical books. So I read 7 ebooks and 5 physical books, which is the 12 books overall. But then that means I gave 1 book 1 star. I gave 2 books 2 stars. I gave 3 books 3 stars, and I gave 6 books 4 stars. So that was a real range of ratings, and that was my first 1-star book of this year. I actually can't even remember the last time I gave a 1-star rating, because typically I know what books I like to read. I'm quite good at knowing whether I'm going to enjoy it or not. And I think there's a potential that I would have DNF'd it, but because it was an arc, I felt like I should read it because I wanted to rate it, because I felt like I should. And also, I don't like selecting the option on NetGalley that says I will not rate this book, because then you never get 100% on your feedback ratio. And I am really funny about that. And I don't feel like personally, anyone else can do ratings and anything like that how they want to do it. There's no judgment here, but I personally feel like I can't rate a book if I DNF it. So I wanted to read it so that I could know that I didn't like it, which sounds a bit ridiculous, but doesn't happen to me very often. So 12 books is kind of crazy. So these are the physical books that I read, which is plus of course Thunderhead, but that had to go back to the library. So it does look like a very small stack of books, but I really made use of my Kindle this month, so I cannot complain with that. So please do like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you would like to see more, and leave a comment down below and tell me what you thought of any of the books that I have mentioned today.